applications on a first-come basis, making no differentiation between a new application and a transfer application. We, of course, have a finite amount of resources, so changing around the order in which we process things or creating separate queues isn't going to make the work get done any faster, but it could change, should the board wish us to change the priority in which we process things, we will do that. I raised this just because of the number of times I've heard about it and you've probably heard about it. In our opinion, it is fair to process in the order in which it is received. We very much understand that our lack of resources is creating a very long wait time for processing of applications. I want to assure both the board and applicants, licensees, the general community that the staff worked incredibly hard. There's been a great deal of overtime done for months and months and months. Burnout is a concern. So we're working as fast as we can. There is not an easy solution to this issue because even should we say, oh, let's hire 5 more examiners, well, it would take 6 months to, bring them on board and even start to train them. So unfortunately, there's not a speedy solution to this issue. And I would also remind you that we're just starting renewal season. So we have 2 examiners focused on new and transfer applications and 1 examiner focused on that's 3 of our 5 examiners devoted to marijuana. So because the board has heard this issue, and I have heard this issue multiple times, I guess my question to the board is, do you want us to change the method in which we determine the order of applications to process?
Sure. Good. Just a couple of maybe clarifying questions. We see in a local government perspective, if there's a change in ownership of alcohol license, and we get those all the time during the year, so I never thought about sort of how they queued up, because usually the only other times we get noticed if it's a new license or it's at renewal time, and so we're asking our staff to look at sales tax, fire, police, all that stuff. So is it the same on the alcohol side, that if you have, if you have 1,000 renewals, that are taking place starting in January, and somebody sells their business January 15th, does that sale get back behind those 1,000 renewals, and then we in the city don't hear anything until August? I mean, how does that work? Because it seems like an ongoing business that is selling this ownership. You want to open. You want to not drag that on for tax purposes, but then you have to do background checks. You have to do all these things. And to wait 5 months and then start the process of looking at background checks, you could put a business that exists for somebody who wants to retire because of medical reasons or something else, in limbo for a long time. So that was sort of where I was headed.
Thank you. Through the Chair, Jones. So renewals, and I'm going to say some things, and then Ms. Oates is going to correct me if I get them wrong. Renewals are a little bit separate, so we don't combine new, transfer, and renewals. Renewals kind of sit outside, and I think what we generally do is sort of assign some staff to renewals and other staff to the new and transfer. But on the alcohol side, new and transfer are done in order. They are combined and processed in the order in which they are received.
Okay. And I'm going to jump the gun here a little bit, but one of the licenses under pending, and I had sent you and Sarah the email. I had checked with our community development because I was trying to figure out what happened. Well, the answer I got back from community development is, it's different names now, because now they're having to update their conditional use permit. They didn't apply for a building permit till April. Well, then it dawned on me that was one that I think Ms. Wellseen was representing. And she says, well, they're trying to change owners. That's why the names on our applications are different than are on the conditional use permit that's going before our planning commission last night. but you haven't processed the transfer, so you can't be told any. It doesn't do any good to send you all that information because the names wouldn't match up. So that, to me, says, well, there's, the conflicting things. We in the city of Borough Juneau would be approving a change in a conditional use permit for a name that's not officially an owner because of, it could be 3, 4, 5 months before it got through your process. To me, that's sort of confusing and could, I don't know what the sort of the regulatory scheme is, because we would be doing something within our city government because we have a separate set of rules for marijuana, conditional use permit, and a separate business license. So I'm trying to think out loud here, and that's always dangerous, in trying to figure out where I would sit on whether I would want to see those kinds of things prioritized differently. But I'm sort of leaning toward yes, because I think it's important for a business to continue on. But it's also important if I was in the business and I was trying to sell my business and all of a sudden you said you can't sell to that person because they don't pass the criminal background check. I guess I'd like to know, because then I could sell it to somebody else and not wait 6, 8 months. So sorry to think out loud, but those are some of the things that are going through my brain.
Yeah, to the chair, to Mr. Jones, I concur. I think that it is imperative that we do prioritize the transfer applications over the new ones because those are the businesses that are actually driving the tax revenue. There's no guarantee that any of the new businesses are going to succeed. They might not, but the businesses that are currently functioning are ultimately the ones who are paying the fees. They're the ones who are putting the money into the coffers, and so it's going to be much more difficult to sell a business, to buy a business, and ultimately for us to regulate those if we don't keep the ones that are operating in operation while that process is taking place.
Just out of curiosity, when they first open a transfer application, how long does it take to actually process one?
That's a great question for my staff. It can take anywhere, depending upon the type of a transfer, if it's changing from a sole proprietor to an entity that's owned by the sole proprietor, by that individual. Typically those are a little easier than some of the very complicated controlling interest transfers that we've received. Some of those controlling interest transfers can take sometimes more than a day or a couple of days to process because they can be very complicated. Depending upon the examiner and her experience, a new application can take anywhere from a couple of hours to the better part of a day. At least one of our examiners can hammer out a few applications in a day if she is here on a weekend and not being interrupted by anything else. So transfer applications usually, if it's a relatively simple transfer, would take the same amount of time as an application. But again, if there's a complex controlling interest transfer or if there are a number of creditors that have been listed, that certainly adds to the time.
So I think I tend to agree with the comments that have been made about the need to facilitate commerce, which is what a transfer ownership application does. I can imagine a number of different scenarios where somebody would be in a big hurry. They've got an important reason to move down states, and they've got a willing buyer, and they're a willing seller, and if they leave for how long, leave the state for how long, while they are still licensee, they run into residency problems as licensee prior to the transfer taking place. So I would, and given the timeline that Ms. Oates suggested for completing these simple ownership transfer, and probably the fact that we don't have an overwhelming number of ownership transfer applications. I would say it would be worth it prioritizing servicing existing businesses.
Okay, so just keeping in mind that new businesses may be paying rent on facilities that, and not getting any income, whereas existing businesses at least are, probably still getting income while they're waiting.
The ancillary question is also, are we still approving applications pending background checks, or background checks taking a short period of time? I mean, if you're literally transferring it from Brandon to me, then, do you do that, and then, the background check is done in 5-6 months, and then if there's a problem, then there's a problem, but if there's not, so...
We won't issue, the board changed its policy at some point last year, I don't remember the exact date, but we won't issue the license until we get the background check back.
And so when Izzo says it takes a day or 2
talking,
hours, that's not the background check. That's not the total review. That's the examiner saying
the first time through it, right? And then the examiner usually writes an incomplete letter to say, these are all the corrections that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all the corrections that need to be made. The licensee has 90 days to get those corrections in. They come back. That takes additional review. I mean, so Ms. Oates was talking about the very first pass through the application.
Yeah. And so what I'm trying to figure out is if a new application comes to an examiner's desk, they have all those same issues to deal with. Do we have the fingerprints? We send off this. We do this. Here's the corrections. And then so it may be 2 or 3 months to get all that done to meet a deadline to come before the board. One would think a transfer would have less mistakes, could be a 30-day return instead of a 90-day return. But then if they miss a deadline and have to wait 3 months for a board meeting, I don't know that it helps or hurts to, prioritize the actual review. So they review it, they send out the incomplete, and then if that doesn't come back for 30 days, then when that comes back, they have to drop what they're doing and prioritize that one up, and then still wait 2 months or 3 months till our next board meeting versus if we were going to prioritize transfers, we should maybe look at how do we prioritize so that we shorten the time frame to make corrections. We probably can't shorten the background time.
We have no control over the background checks. Yeah.
But maybe a 2-hour teleconference board meeting, we could review a transfers in between meetings. If we did a teleconference, that would speed part of it up as well, I would think. If you had 3 or 4 and we were 2.5 months out from our next meeting, then, So, I mean, there's a prioritization all the way along the line that I think we would need to ask you, how would that work? It's easy for us to say, okay, go ahead and prioritize, but then you have to prioritize every step along the way and whether that changes. So, again, I'm thinking out loud, and that's always dangerous, but I would like to see some of that prioritized, but I think rather than us say prioritize it, you need to figure out if that's possible and what that means to all the rest of your workflow, and let us know, because I don't want to say you have to do this and that just totally disrupts everything. I don't think that's fair for us that only deal with this, 3 or 4 days of every quarter.
Is the review process the long poll, or is it the background check? Fingerprints.
Through the chair, Mr. Miller, are you talking about for the transfer application?
In general, for any application.
You mean what takes so long, or?
Yeah. Okay, maybe I'll ask the question. Do you have applications that you've reviewed that you've deemed complete, basically, except for the fingerprint portion, and they just sit and wait?
No. If an application is determined to be complete, but it's pending the criminal history report, we'll bring that to the board, and then that's included as part of the delegation, the board delegation.
Okay.
So what Director McConnell was saying earlier was that the license itself won't be issued until we receive the report back. And I just heard back from Jane, and we have 5 ownership transfer applications in the queue right now.
Well, that doesn't strike me as a very onerous number, and I kind of like Mr. Jones' idea of if you've got a few of them that are ready, we should be able to accommodate some board action.
I think that's great. I just want to have you keep in mind that, kind of setting up these interim board meetings does take time and effort, too. So we'll discuss that internally. I don't want to promise that we'll act on that, but I appreciate everybody's willingness to try to process these more quickly. I would also like you to stress to the licensees that on the alcohol side, when you're selling your business and your license, the board, and on the marijuana side, the board controls who owns the license. And so there can be no, guarantee, I'm going to sell you this, and, you go talk to the board. And, there's a letter from Ms. Beltine in the marijuana mailbox that talks about, who's responsible after they sold the business, but the transfer's still out there 2 months. Well, that can't happen. The licensee who is on the license issued by this board is responsible for the business, and somebody else can't take over operations while they're waiting for a transfer. And I know it's challenging right now because of the time lag, but I think the board needs to emphasize to licensees. Like, I got a text from a guy who got approved in January who said, well, wait, I'm being asked for fingerprints for the renewal, but I sold my interest in the license, a while ago. So sometime between January and now, he sold his interest in the license. Well, that doesn't come to the board. He can't, so we're going to investigate that. So I don't think the licensees are very used, none of us are used to transfers in this regulatory system, but I think the board needs to make it clear that the licensee is responsible for operating the business until such time as the board approves somebody else to be that licensee.
Well, I know we run into that sometimes. Not in regulated businesses, but we'll send out a notice to business XYZ that you haven't submitted your sales tax for this quarter, and it'll say, well, I sold it 3 months ago, and the new owner never changed the registration and wasn't paying the sales tax. So we run into that quite often. But on those businesses there, I sold my T-shirt shop to somebody. There's no regulatory. But for those that are regulated businesses, that's a tough deal. Sometimes we find out about that, and then we tell a regulator, and they go, we didn't know. So it does happen in other businesses. It's not unique. But I think we need to figure out some accommodation, keep the current commerce flowing, and to allow for transfers to take place a little bit quicker. But I will say that would be my priority. But you got to tell us whether that's feasible or not, and then we have to try to understand that. So.
Well, I think what the board has said is to advisement and work internally to address where the board feels like we should put our priorities. Okay, moving on. I was fortunate to be able to attend 2 conferences recently, or meetings. The first one Ms. Milks and I went to, which was a regulators roundtable in December, in May. And the recreational states have been meeting. This will be I think the 3rd meeting that we've had, and we're sort of expanding it to include medical states and sort of looking at forming a regulators organization And so at this meeting it grows by states. So at this meeting, we had representatives from 14 total states, 4 Canadian provinces, and the federal government of Canada. And this was a great meeting. But two of the guest speakers were Mark Feynman, who's a professor of public policy at New York University, and Bo Kilmer. They are two of the three authors of this book, which is Marijuana Legalization. I've owned this book for maybe 3 years now, and I haven't read it yet, I have to admit. But it's supposed to be very good, so we ordered some copies for the office, and any of the board members would like to borrow a copy to read it. We got 3 copies to sort of put out on interlibrary loan. But they've spent a lot of time researching and these issues, and it was Mr. Feynman who suggested a tax based on THC content, which I thought was very interesting, and the board not to abandon that as a potential, maybe not right away, as we're still sorting out some testing issues, but to continue to kind of keep that in your brain as something to think about as we continue to consider that issue, if the board wants to continue to consider that issue. Mr. Kilmer had talked about recommendations on 12 different design factors that managed to make all start with a P, and it was really interesting. So I just listed some things in my board report, some findings that they had found. There was a lot of talk about, data that's out there and missing data or studies that need to be done that aren't being done. It's a very great, it's a good opportunity for Alaska to be able to discuss and coordinate with regulators from other states and help. We all have common issues, and so help figure out how to address our issues by learning how some of these issues are addressed in other places. Hemp continues to be an issue in many states, and New York seems to be the people who kind of have the best, but also the tightest control over what's going on. So I will probably, at least share that with our Division of Agriculture as they look at developing regulations for SB 6. And sorry.
I just had a question, and I didn't get a chance to answer it when the tax people were here. And I didn't read the bill all that closely, but is there a tax on the agricultural hemp or on CBD? I was curious about that.
I don't remember. And the milk doesn't remember either. I'd have to look that up, but I'll try to find that out for you. Should be easy. Also, those states, I think I've been sending some articles regarding the situation in Oregon with their supply and oversupply, and a lot of states the states that don't regulate supply are kind of also feeling some concerns about, as I think we are, about going down that road and how to address that. We're still looking to create a formal organization, which we think should happen within the next year. They did invite Bob Troyer, who's the U.S. Attorney for the District of Colorado, to speak, and it really sounds like, so there is a marijuana group of U.S. attorneys, a subset of all the U.S. attorneys that focus on marijuana, and our U.S. Attorney, Ryan Schroeder, is in that group. And so they talk and share information, and it really sounds like Mr. Troyer in Colorado worked very well with the regulated industry and the other law enforcement, both federal and state, at the federal and state level in Colorado, to address the enforcement of illegal actors. And on my list to reach out to Mr. Schroeder, I have not yet had an opportunity to do that, but Mr. Troyer definitely recommends developing those relationships. So. Last week, I went to the Canada West Compliance Testing and Product Safety Conference in Redondo Beach, and I really wish I met him there. I was invited to be on a panel of regulators at this conference, and I did attend a majority of the sessions. Some of the sessions were so good I couldn't take anything away from them about the molecular structure of cannabis. But it was interesting to hear that there aren't, as we all know, there aren't national testing standards for cannabis, and but there are groups that are looking at that. So the struggles that we're having in our state are, of course, as we know, not unique. And then some states do require their testing facility to be accredited to an ISO standard, 17025. It's the ISO standard for testing and calibration laboratories. And that's not a panacea. It's not a solve, it doesn't solve everything because it addresses some, but not other things. But it's certainly something that the board may want to consider, or the testing group may want to discuss. Kind of looking at what that standard is and whether or not it would benefit us. 3 bills related to marijuana did pass this past legislative session. The Marijuana Control Board was extended for 6 years to 2024. And the bill was transmitted to the governor for signature just on this past Monday. The background check issue kind of had a lot of different iterations. It was, I think, originally HB 319, but it got shoved into SB 81 at the last minute. And the final thing that came out of it was a background check every 5 years, which was what the board requested. The bill is awaiting transmittal to the governor, so while since it is not yet in law, we continue to require background checks for renewals this year, but once it becomes effective, we will make that change. And then I think we've had some discussion about SB 6 and to provide an overview to that bill at the April meeting. Mr. Chair, you had requested a short overview of SB 63, the smoking bill. Ms. Meenan spoke to that this morning. Ms. Milk is going to maybe give you a little bit more after I finish my report. Legislative requests for next year are due right around summer, so this is a heads up. Start thinking about what you want so that we can have the board vote on things at the August meeting for me to include in our requests for action by the legislature. And staff may bring some suggestions to the board in August as well. I did attach to this report some thoughts from a licensee. There appears to be some efforts by a licensee group to speak directly with Senator McChickey and Commissioner Navarre, so they included the issues that they were concerned with, just for your information. As usual, I've attached a report of the current status of the regulations project. The testing working group, and I can have Mr. Emmett offer Mr. Emmett the opportunity to speak more on this, but they continue to hold productive meetings, and the first recommendations for regulation changes are on this agenda. The lab audit of cannabis and CP pill is done. It's attached to this report. You heard Mr. Coyle speak about it this morning. If the board wants, I expect we could find time maybe Friday afternoon to speak more about it. I do wish to have someone from the Environmental Health Laboratory here if you wish to speak about it. Mr. Krupe, who's the lab manager who kind of managed the audit, will not be available. He's out of town, but Patrice McKinney, who is the chair or the head of the chief of the entire lab, has offered to make herself available on Friday afternoon. So should I... Okay, I will do that. Mr. Emmett, do you want to say anything about the testing working group?
Yeah, thank you to the chair. So the testing working group has had many meetings. We've had fairly good attendance, somewhere around 50 to 75% of attendance. Many individuals have commented on sections of the regulations they thought that they might want to see amended, specifically as they apply to testing and to labeling. As you see now, we have this report. So the recommendations that we're going to bring forward don't quite hit at the heart of the issue, as like why the testing group was formed in the first place, and a lot of that is testing methodology and testing results. We were waiting on the audit of the labs to be completed. As you can see, it was quite thorough. It took some time, and so the recommendations that you're going to see come before you mostly have to do with sampling and reporting. But as Mr. Coyle brought up, the lab audit that was completed actually raises many more questions because there was incomplete data from both labs, and there's no national standard as to how a lot of this marijuana testing is done. And so what the lab audit does speak to is there's definitely a need of this board to come up with a list of standardized procedures to make certain that the labs are actually doing things the same, even if they don't give over proprietary information. There's basic items within this report where the labs could both tighten things up, and we could start to get some more consistency between those labs. And again, I don't think this is the time to go through the report. I hope that you guys had the chance to read it, but certainly if we have some time on Friday, it would be beneficial to the public for us to dive deeper into it. But we do have some recommendations for you guys that we will be bringing forward, and there's definitely much more work to come on the horizon.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett. The next board meeting is scheduled for August 15th and 16th in Denali. This is a sort of an unusual location for the board to meet, and this is because the ABC board very much wants to meet in Denali because it's a place where you have a low permanent population but a high tourist population, and so that has an impact on how the licenses work there. And the marijuana board is required by statute to meet at the same time and place as the alcohol board. But it's unusual because you can't fly in there. So we are planning to, for those of you who don't live in Fairbanks, we're planning to take you up by van on Tuesday the 14th, and drive home after the second day of meetings, the night of the 16th. And then for those of you who might have flights, we'd probably put you up in Anchorage. So it's going to be a little bit unusual. It's going to be very expensive, and I encourage any members of the public who wish to attend that meeting to look for hotel rooms, because it's not going to be easy, and that's going to be one of the difficult things about this meeting.
To the Chair, Director McConnell, so you plan on driving people up from Anchorage or driving them down from Fairbanks?
Driving them up from Anchorage.
Really? Did you explored flying people to Fairbanks and then driving down? It's a lot shorter. Just throwing it out there.
We'll take a look.
That's going to save any money, but it might save the board members some time.
Money is my issue, not time.
Oh, yeah.
We'll take a look. We looked at the train. The train really wasn't so we'll take a look.
Okay.
Applications must be complete, and documents for the board's packet must be submitted for office by July 27th to be on that agenda. The usual statistics are here. We've hit total sales of $100 million with taxes of total taxes of $10 million, which looks like we're at a functional tax rate of about 10%, which I think is interesting. Mr. Chair, you've asked twice for information about the amount of unsold product that exists at a point in time, and we are really working on that, but I know we're working with them on it, but I don't have that for you today, but we haven't forgotten that. And with that,
the total taxes, that's only state receipts, or does that include municipal sales tax?
Only state.
Okay, and I think we've probably asked for this in the past, is how much of our licensing receipts have been allocated out to municipalities?
I'll get that for you. Maybe I'll add that regularly.
Yeah, a little financial report would be helpful, at least every couple of years.
Yeah, got it. Ms. Milks, SB 63.
Thank you, and through the Chair, just a couple of additional points about Senate Bill 63, commonly referred to as the smoking bill. Does two things of interest for you. First, it permits smoking Section 2 of the bill, for those of you following at home, permits smoking in an establishment licensed under 1738 that is freestanding if the smoking is in accordance with regulations adopted by the board. Then the bill goes on to define freestanding. Second thing the bill does, it allows municipalities to adopt additional restrictions on smoking. So this is something that the board, I think, anticipated at a couple of meetings in the past. The question was posed to me, what if we adopt a regulation permitting smoking consumption at a licensed retail establishment, and then the municipality in which that establishment is located has an anti-smoking ordinance, and at that time I advised you that state law would trump local law and the smoking would be permitted. But what you see here is the state statute permitting municipalities to impose additional restrictions, and that was something that was also discussed in one of the earlier versions of the regulation that you were contemplating, whether or not the board wanted to adopt a regulation stating something to the effect of notwithstanding any provisions in municipal law to the contrary or something like that. So what you see in this bill is that circumstance was anticipated by the legislature, and it seems clear that the legislative intent is to allow local governing bodies to have input into whether smoking is allowed.
Could we get a copy of SB 63 to put in our regulatory binders? Because there's stuff in there for us. We're going to have to look at it, I think, as we're finally developing some of our regulations. So that would be
Sure can.
Thank you. It's not very long, is it?
16 pages.
Oh, thank you. This is longer than our regulations.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
Doesn't the bill also have an option for local communities if they have smoking regulations on the board? They can opt out of the state regulation, which would then allow them to possibly, they would control it themselves, right? More
Right.
Well, they're allowed to opt out, but it has to be by election.
It would be a big deal. It would be a big deal, but they could do it.
They could do it.
Yeah, I think that's an important provision.
They could opt out and have no regulations. Mr. Chair, question, and you know, we had the testimony of Mr. Coyle, and we're going to get a report on the changes in regulations on testing. We've got the lab report, which, for me, did answer a lot of questions. Couldn't understand a lot of it. One of the reasons I went into the social sciences and not hard sciences. But we have 2 testing applications for new testing facilities before us that we're going to review, probably starting tomorrow. Is there any guidance that we should be thinking about? Because, you know, currently we've approved testing. We've had this outside group, you know, come in and sort of review and say, okay, they're ready, and then we give them a license. And now we've had some issues, and we've lost one because of nothing to do with testing, but simply because of Wells Fargo Bank. And now we suddenly got 2 more, but we have this audit report. I'm guessing we should go ahead and review them, knowing that they still have to go through a process. But is there any sort of general guidance that I could go back and reread the applications from based on all of our discussions around testing that, you know, if I went and reread that stuff tonight or tomorrow, that would help me?
You start.
To the chair, Mr. Jones. So the short answer is no. So all the recommendations that are made here, they contemplate future actions that a regulatory body might take, or that the labs voluntarily decide to do to come more into line with what is acceptable or accepted procedures in government laboratories. Kind of what Mr. Quill has spoken to about having a government standard for labs. But as far as we're concerned, I don't believe there's anything that's going to be recommended by the testing work group in this current set of regulations or anything that's in this lab audit that's going to have to make these businesses go back to the drawing board. I would stress to them that, A, if you guys want to catch up, you're going to need to read this lab audit, and you're going to certainly need to know the recommendations that are brought forward if this board decides to adopt them. But I don't think their applications would be stymied by this report.
And I totally agree with what Mr. Emmett said. I would add that you may want to talk to them about what standard operating procedures they have in place to assure accuracy and precision. I think those are some of the big issues.
Well, those are some of the issues that I found hardest to sort of understand in the audit report, because it talked about proficiency and accuracy and sort of self-testing, and some of the labs did some, but not all. One of the labs didn't seem to do any, but it didn't say, here's the way you need to actually do it to pass that kind of we are proficient, we are accurate, and so that's where I got a lot of confusion. So, but I assume that the outside group we hired to go in and look at the labs and stuff like that will have the audit report as well.
Haven't sent it to them, but that's a great idea. And I think you're exactly right. We don't have standards for this. But if a lab says we don't have any internal processes to regularly check for accuracy, that's a red flag. Whether or not we understand what those internal procedures are, them having them or not having them is something that I think we can understand.
Okay, as long as we were here and we weren't talking about a specific license, I thought I would ask that.
Just a question on the review of testing license applications. Staff, the license examiners, are kind of going on holding up the application to the standard of the regulations. They're not bringing any technical expertise to that. I wonder if it would be looking at employing an outside evaluator for license applications, either somebody in the state or sort of out of state who is a biochemist who understands the process, who can look at the applications and say, that looks goofy, when neither staff or maybe even the board would catch that. Because this is really, testing, as I said before, testing is kind of the linchpin of the success of the entire industry. And we owe it to the people of Alaska to assure that the testing program that we license is the best that it can be. So I just wanted to suggest that maybe we consider finding an additional set of eyes to look at testing applications to, provide technical advice, say, yeah, everything here looks fine, or to say, this looks kind of funny, can they clarify, or whatever.
Mr. Chair, I don't think that's a bad idea. I would like to, and am working towards developing a closer relationship with the Environmental Health Lab at DEC and see whether we can kind of pull them into our orbit to work with us more closely. So that's kind of an ongoing conversation. They have some concerns about, what they can do for us and that sort of thing. But that sort of review and possibly even other things might be something that we'll be working on in the future.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing in other states, but I think there's some pretty every state's got, it's legal, has got testing laboratories. So I don't want to put a lot of pressure on DEC, especially if we're not going to pay them. Oh, we would pay them. Okay, if they think they could do it, that's fine, because they do, I guess, evaluate other laboratory environments in the state. But I think it's important. I know there's participation in the academic community, on the testing committee. You might want to talk about that too, the testing committee. I just would feel a little more comfortable if we know that these testing applications are getting the look that they deserve to have.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the willingness to participate is most definitely there from both the state and the private scientific community. The question is, in funding, and what are they going to legally be allowed to do? You know, and so that's maybe kind of a broader conversation. But I don't think the scientific community itself is opposed whatsoever. And a few of the people on the testing committee have seemed pretty excited about diving into this. The question that's come up is, okay, do we have the resources to do this, or are we going to run afoul of the federal government because our lab is also federally funded for certain projects, that sort of thing. But it's definitely an ongoing conversation to have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the director? Anything else? Okay, then I guess we'll move on to the enforcement report. Chief Walsher.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public, licensees. For those who don't know me, my name is James Holster. I'm the enforcement supervisor for AMCO. And I just want to let the board know that about an hour from now, about 2:40, I need to get up and I need to leave. So please understand that. I just wanted to let you guys know. And if I seem a little bit rushed or antsy, it's because I want to be present for some of these things, but I can't. And I want to try to finish up as much as I can so we can get to that point. Yeah. So I submitted my report dated June 5th, 2018. Hopefully all of you have received a copy. One thing that you'll notice on that report is it was missing some of the things I usually put on there, and a lot of that had to do with me being pressed with other items. I do have some addendum items that I had written down that I was going to present to you guys verbally, just FYI, so it doesn't feel like I'm digressing from my report. So, AMCO enforcement has been extremely busy with investigations, inspections, and providing assistance to alcohol and marijuana licensees. We started our travel to rural areas for the main purpose of inspections and provide training to local law enforcement in areas that we're not able to frequently visit. Now, just for clarification, because the Alcohol Board asked yesterday, it's not that we only travel during those summer months. It's prime traveling months for rural Alaska, though. So we try to get in as many annual inspections as we can in that short amount of time. If we were to receive a complaint in February in Bethel or something, for that matter, when it is one of the worst months weather-wise, we would still go out there. It's not that we only wait for this short period of time to travel. And for licensees and the general public who aren't aware, AMCO investigators, there's 8 across the state, including myself. We handle the marijuana licensees, but the alcohol licensees, which number up in the 2000s. So we oftentimes get pressed for inspections, investigations, and so on and so forth for both alcohol and marijuana. And I just wanted to speak to that and remind everybody or inform everybody, because there is, it's not an excuse, but it helps have a better understanding of what we're dealing with in enforcement. So with that being said, segues into what we're trying to do now. As I reported at my last meeting, we're trying to create some type of training for law enforcement to have them assist us, especially with Title IV and with some Title 17 statutes. In Title IV, there's one of the things they receive money back to help us to assist in enforcement of Title IV. So what we've done is we've started a syllabus which has been completed by Investigator Chiesa, and now that the syllabus is created, we're creating a PowerPoint or a presentation to go along with the syllabus. And what that's going to do is give every one of us a consistent way of passing on the consistent information every single time. And that's generally for law enforcement, that what we're working on. But we are working on a separate training instruction, more like a public presentation for the public. That's kind of a narrowed down version of that that kind of says this is what's out there and this is how it happens. Respectively, it could include things, or it will include things telling the general public, this is where you would find the link to see what approved marijuana products are out there. This is how you should see that they're labeled and that kind of thing. So we want to have a better educated public, better educated licensees. We feel that with that, you get proper, I guess, more compliance with our regulations that we're trying to enforce. I hope to have that presented to the alcohol board by this coming August, and I'll also present it to the marijuana board for their review. The alcohol portion is complete. We're just working on the marijuana portion, as it's a little more convoluted in some ways, where we have to explain it in a way where we're trying to teach cops. I don't know how else to say that. So, just for the record, I was one for 21 years, so that wasn't a dig at them. It's just that we have so much that we have to soak in, and it has to be a version that we can understand and retain. So in that, we will be keeping stats for public appearances and law enforcement training as well in my future reports. And the last thing goes on to what I've been talking about compliance checks. Right now, it's with Department of Law and Tobacco. I have no way to push that forward or anything else. I just want to reassure the board that we are working towards having that in place. And it's not because of lack of us doing anything. It's just, you know, the way it goes. I can't rush anything. It's out of our control. Now, with that being said, I'm going into our stats. I know that a lot of the things that I'm hearing is lack of response from enforcement or different types of guidance issues. I wanted our criminal justice technician, Jason Davies, to come down here. I wanted to introduce him to you guys. Jason? So Jason was hired. He started January 2nd, 2018. He's been responsible for gathering the statistics from all investigators. Being a little shy. So he's provided a lot of information, to include monitoring the AMCO.enforcement email. He's very responsive on returning emails in a timely manner. If it's something that he knows that he's not, or he can't direct the person in the right way, he'll forward them to an investigator to deal with and to answer that question. And I only bring that up because I know that I've been working with the board for just about 3 years now, and I think it's been very clear that every time there's been something in regulation that has been unclear to enforcement, that is not clear in our regulations or statute, I brought it to our directors, prior to Erica, our director, prior to her, the interim prior to her as well. And if there was still confusion, we asked Harriet, our attorney, for more clarification. When it came up with things that were problems with regulation or interpretation that we could not go off on our own, that it wasn't clear, I should say, I've always come back to the board and I've always asked. I think there's a clear track record on that. So I want to be on the record when accusations are made of AMCO enforcement, making things their own interpretations of law. I just want to say and remind the board there is a clear track record that is not the case. If something's ever been unclear, then it's been brought through the proper channels, I believe. So moving on to our statistics, you guys seen all the numbers. If you guys have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions I can. I don't feel it would be productive for me to go over every single one, so I'll open it up if you guys have questions regarding those.
I was just curious what your definition of rural is, because it's 40, basically 47, 40.
It falls under what he does and what the definition for the rural seats for alcohol and marijuana. Essentially anything off the road system, or 50 in the alcohol side, it's anything 50 miles away from where a class is provided from the main area. that make sense? So like Talkeetna would be considered rural because it's over 50 miles from any alcohol server education. And we talked with the alcohol board on that, and it was very clear that they wanted us to use that definition of rural when we're defining rural.
Is the board definition for the MCB the same as for the ABC?
I don't think so because they don't mention training. It's all online training. Alcohol training is not all online. They can do it. They have it in person, and it only can be online if a class in person is not provided within 50 miles of where they're located. So it's a little different.
I would just say for me, being here as long as I have anything off the road system, is rural. But I can only think of one or two licenses in my definition of rural that this is rural. It's just confusing for, I think, most of us.
If I could clarify, those rural, a lot of those are outside of southeast Alaska, which definitely would fall outside rural. And we've also had Bethel inspections, Nome inspections. I currently have an investigator in Bristol Bay, Dillingham, Naknek area. We had investigators out in Kodiak. So those are all rural areas. I'm not trying to drum up numbers on this or anything.
And you've got a lot of lodges that are seasonal.
Right? Yeah, well,
they do in the summertime and down Bristol Bay and Kodiak. And
yeah, and these also include our virtual inspections.
But also the definition of the rural seat for the board is, a population not connected by road or rail to Anchorage or Fairbanks that is 7,000 or less, or a population of 2,000 or less that is connected by road or rail to Anchorage or Fairbanks. So any of your small communities on the peninsula that are less than 2,000 are counted as rural. Like he said, Talkeetna, Houston.
Basically,
yeah, if it's less than 2,000.
2 donut shops away from Anchorage.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the definition that James just said he is using is the alcohol definition of rural for the board seat, which is different. And that definition is a community that is not connected by road or rail to Anchorage or Fairbanks that has a population of 6,000 or less, or that has a population of more than 6,000 and has participated in a local option election for alcohol. So that doesn't include any.
So it's pretty confusing, and if you look across the state definitions of rural, there's so many different ones out there, and if we can't drive to it in a day and back in the day within 8 hours, then it's generally considered rural. It's like
we don't have any. We have one marijuana licensee who's off the road system. That's up and known. So everybody else would be, I guess, you would
incorrect.
Alaska Marine Highway.
Yep.
Yeah, southeast. Yeah.
If you want to consider that as well.
No, you're correct. You're correct. So I'm not. This is rural. It just means that you're going to drive a couple extra hours.
Correct.
Yeah. And I've one pertains loosely to marijuana here, but says the alcohol industry is 46 for change in ownership. So the alcohol industry, they experience some of the same issues that are brought up with the marijuana industry, and that's the whole change of ownership thing. This is something that's just us.
No, they experience the same thing. They have reporting requirements and transfer requirements depending on whether it's a controlling interest transfer or not. And they do the same thing. And so these come from renewal period where when they renew, they show that the ownership is different from our records, and thus they've done an illegal ownership change. And so licensing establishes those, as Mr. Holscher stated yesterday, the AB board. The investigators aren't out there checking on ownership, but the licensing unit finds this through the renewal period and forwards it to enforcement.
Sounds like I need to start going to the alcohol meeting too now.
Yeah. Those liquor licenses are a high value negotiable. James, let me ask you about resources for enforcement. There's 8 officers in the whole state. You're driving all over the state and traveling all over southeast. You're still doing all your communications by cell phone?
Correct.
Okay, so right now, AMCO enforcement doesn't have, you're not on Alamar, the state integrated radio system, not in any of that right now.
Do you have access to my emails?
Do I?
I was joking. Literally about an hour ago, I was talking with the state about setting up us with the Almar channel going through the training and having Almar radios placed in the vehicles at the very least, to include having a few additional radios. And just for the general public, so when we are on the road system, we can keep in communication with ourselves, other law enforcement, to let them know where we are, what's going on, that we're okay if we need assistance. I can't tell you the amount of times where we try to go to a licensee and our cell phone signal just goes away. And it's not that there's a lack of trust or anything regarding anybody that we're dealing with. It's just a mindset that we need to have some way to communicate back correctly to make sure everything's okay. That's ingrained in our heads. And it's beneficial for us to stay in communication with each other or other law enforcement, especially if we do need assistance, because we're not only dealing with licensees, we could be dealing with somebody else that has more, that has some type of nefarious mindset that, it wouldn't be pleasant. So I do appreciate you asking, and we are moving forward on getting that.
Okay, how about for the how many vehicles, state vehicles, does enforcement have?
7. We have almost one for every investigator. We tried to get one last year. I don't know if we have one in the budget for next year, but it almost seems like we've run into issues with sometimes our department for adding additional vehicles to the fleet. We currently, of the 7 that we have, only 4 of them, so almost half of them, are currently covered on that reoccurring lease that we can, when it runs out, we can get another one. The other 3, once they're burned, they're done, they're done. That would include both Fairbanks vehicle here.
Okay. Are they, they're basically cop cars, they got lights or sirens or anything you think you need for officer safety and making your presence known if you're doing not pulling out in front of if you're doing alcohol establishments. I mean, if you're doing something that might be by its nature high risk or high visibility, you have those sort of resources that you need without calling troopers or somebody to come and help you out.
2 of the 5 vehicles, the 2 vehicles in Fairbanks have emergency lights. Again, it's awkward that you bring this up. This is something that has been in discussion. All these kinds of things, and all of these things stem back to what we call officer safety. These are things that we want to have better for the public. When we contact a member of the public or a licensee, there's certain times where they may recognize us by face, but there's other times when we talk about the 2,000 alcohol licensees or their employees or somebody outside of an alcohol licensee, licensed premises, that may be doing things wrong. There are times where we need to identify ourselves, and the investigators have outside vest carriers. We're just in the process of ordering caps, jackets, our vehicle, and those aren't to run around and just, badge flash. I hope anybody in here knows that that's not us. Anybody who's met us, I would hope they can vouch that we're pretty laid back, and even though we're trying to find out things, we're pretty direct, and not to the point where I would say that we would categorize in any badge heavy type scenario. So with that being said, the director and I are talking about putting some lights on some vehicles here in Anchorage. I, of course, argue that that's the correct thing to do, because if you get in a situation where we can't identify ourselves immediately and somebody perceives us as something other than enforcement or a peace officer, then it could turn ugly real fast. And I just, resources, manpower, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, but I'm showing you guys numbers. I'm showing you guys numbers generated by 8 investigators, including myself, and they're only going up. And I don't want to be somebody who's complaining, because, I come from Bush, Alaska, where you're taught to do it on your own, and you're taught to do more with less. And I've been trying to take that and utilize what we have and, try to make it work, but there are places that we do have shortcomings. And unfortunately, that translates what may be a priority to some is not viewed as a priority with what we're doing, or it just happens to fall off the radar. And for that, I would apologize. If I knew if anybody that happened to any specific person, I would absolutely apologize. And I'm not one to make excuses, so I'll own up to if we ever didn't answer an email or anything else that led to some confusion or some maybe bad feelings towards enforcement.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I would at least encourage that, the enforcement to get all the physical support that they need, because there are officers that are out there that are in, you guys roll up on Sportsman's Lodge 100 miles down the road, and those guys all got guns, like, who's that car coming up here? We're the only kids that are supposed to be here. So, not to pick on those guys, but, so anyways, okay, so we want to talk about transportation?
Yes, sir. Some of the things that I wanted to talk about, because transportation is our next, I believe next, is it NOVs or transportation next? Okay. Okay, so this will kind of segue into that. So that would finish up for my report. And as you guys recall, hopefully in April, we had a discussion about transportation. And Mr. Chairman, you requested by the May meeting, we come back and further discuss after some people had time to comment on the marijuana at alaska.gov email. I've been waiting in anticipation, and it slipped my mind about bringing it up in the May meeting, maybe because the May meeting just happened quickly prior to us planning on that. And I've had a lot of questions regarding transportation, and I wanted to talk to the board about transportation. But leading up to that specific topic of if product can backflow and for what reasons, I wanted to bring up a few issues and concerns that we have in enforcement, and wanted to bring them to your attention. In our transportation regulation, it clearly states that, forgive me, I'm reading off a small phone. In 750D, it says during transport, the marijuana or marijuana product must be in a sealed package or container in a sealed, locked, safe, and secured storage compartment in the vehicle transporting the marijuana or marijuana product. The sealed package may not be opened during transport. A vehicle transporting marijuana or marijuana product must travel directly from shipping marijuana establishment to the receiving marijuana establishment, and may not make any unnecessary stops in between except to deliver or pick up marijuana or a marijuana product at another licensed establishment. So my question surrounding that is, we talk about secure and locked and compartments, and I know that a lot of our regulations were adopted from another state, and looking at this regulation and reading their regulation that we obviously got it from, there was a huge chunk of it that was kind of bit off, that clarified some of the things that I'm asking for, or asking about, I should say. And in that regulation, they say transportation of product, it says the marijuana or product must meet these following requirements. And just so you know, these aren't our regulations. These are regulations that I find are pretty clear and easy to follow, where ours leave a lot of gray area. Only marijuana licensee, an employee of the licensee, or a certified testing lab may transport product. That's pretty clear. Marijuana or marijuana products must be in a sealed package or container approved by the board pursuant to whatever their law is. Sealed packages or containers cannot be opened during transport. Marijuana or marijuana products must be in a locked, safe, secure storage compartment that is secured to the inside body/compartment of the vehicle transporting the marijuana or marijuana products. Any vehicle transporting marijuana or marijuana products must travel directly from the shipping licensee to the receiving licensee. It basically mirrors ours. Now, jumping into their F series, where it says live plants may be transported in a fully enclosed, windowless, locked trailer or in a secure area within the inside body compartment of a van or a truck. A secure area is defined as an area where a solid or a locking metal partition, cage, or high-strength shatterproof or acrylic can be used to create a secure compartment in the vehicle. Or enclosed van or box truck. The secured compartment in the fully enclosed van or box truck must be free of windows. Live plants may not be transported in the bed of a pickup truck, sport utility vehicle, or passenger car. And it goes into 6. For the purpose of this chapter, any vehicle assigned for the purpose of transporting marijuana, usable marijuana, marijuana concentrates, or marijuana-infused products shall be considered an extension of the licensed premises and subject to inspection by enforcement officers of the Liquor Control Board. Vehicles assigned for transportation may be stopped and inspected by a liquor enforcement officer at any licensed location or when en route to a transportation. So I only bring that up because what do we consider? The marijuana that's in transit in a vehicle, is that to be considered an extension of the licensed premises? Do our powers of enforcement to look and see if there's any violations that are occurring that are on a vehicle that's listed in the manifest, are they inclusive of that? I just want the board's clarification on some of these things. Also, some of the things we're seeing, just to give you an idea of what my concerns are backpacks filled with marijuana or duffel bags that are secured with a little tiny TSA padlock on a zipper. And they're thrown in the back seat of the vehicle, and the vehicle becomes locked. Then it becomes a locked compartment. So I kind of look at this, and I think that there's a lot of room for this to be pushed in the wrong way. And I don't think that I would hope that it wasn't the intent of the board for things like a duffel bag of marijuana to be sitting in the back seat of a car. Number one, that's a very unprofessional, irresponsible way of doing it, I view it. I mean, especially if it's a large amount of marijuana. I think at the very least it should be in the back trunk, out of sight, secured, and it should be in, when I hear compartment or package, I don't think of a backpack. I think of something hard-sided that can be locked. And they go in a little further to say that should be secured to the vehicle itself. I know there's some licensees here in the state of Alaska that have taken the time and effort to create welded boxes that transfer from one vehicle to another that are completely locked down until they get to the place. So that's a concern I have on that matter.
Mr. Chair, I can understand that if you're on the road system, but given that we have one product manufacturer in Juneau that does not produce edibles, all of the edibles in Juneau that are for sale in the retail stores come on Alaska Airlines. And I can guarantee you that those individuals are not sealing up a locked case and checking it, because TSA could open it and probably would. It's most likely in a backpack. And so it most likely left a manufacturer in a backpack, went through TSA at Anchorage Airport, went in the overhead or under the seat in Alaska Airlines plane, put it in the person's personal car, and probably driven to the retail spot. How that shows up on a metric manifest, I don't have any idea. But I would venture to say that probably 100% transport does not qualify as a locked box in a sealed vehicle. But at the same time, we wouldn't write a regulation for it being transported on an airplane because technically that's still illegal. The fact that Alaska Airlines doesn't want to know and TSA is willing to let it go through, if the U.S. Attorney wanted to make a name for himself, all they had to do is seize a couple of airplanes up here that own by Alaska. But anyway, I think it's an issue as we look at this, because I think it's serious. The way, and if we're going to approve a testing lab in Ketchikan, it's all going to get there not following our transportation rules because of the way it's going to go from Wrangell to Ketchikan or Juneau to Ketchikan for testing. So I agree with you, but when we look at that, we need to consider those places that transportation would never fit that if it was going to be transported the way it's currently being done.
And I appreciate that. I absolutely do, and I'm not disregarding that. a lot of the times we talk about responsibility and watching and who is in care of that product. But the flip side of that is the licensees who are on the road system, through Fairbanks, through Anchorage, through the peninsula, who are traveling long, extended periods of time in their vehicle that have these on there, that are pulling up to a gas station, maybe with a backpack of marijuana in the back seat, closing the door, going in, using the restroom, literally unattended. At what point? It hasn't happened yet. The key word is yet. That a vehicle gets stolen that has marijuana, or a package from the back seat, or a licensee gets robbed because of that. Now, that is my concern. I understand the whole commercial airlines aspect of things. I absolutely do. I just think it creates this area with enforcement where when you want to have things done the right way, but we can't say it because it's kind of borderline, pushing on another federal law or something, it just puts us in a bind, and I hope that the board understands that, and I hope the licensees more than the board understand that, because it's not us trying to exert authority or anything. It's just us trying to make licensees and the general public safe. It's one of the biggest things we deal with alcohol licensees other than server education is posting of signs. And one of the biggest signs that we have them post in the front door is a civil liability fine that tells the person entering their licensed premises that if they use a fake ID to get in there or try to buy alcohol, the licensee can civilly fine them up to $1,500. That benefits the licensee, but yet we get so much pushback from the licensee about that sign, even if it's their benefit. And I bring that up because some of these things that I'm bringing up are obviously, some may be viewed as they're kind of out of reach or they can't be done, but there are certain things that can be done. And I just think that if we move towards that direction somehow, some way, it gives a lot more credence to our regulations. So,
the discussion about the extension of licensed premises to the transportation, we'll say motor vehicle, that actually I think is kind of legitimate. Because you may have somebody who just throws a duffel bag in the back seat of their vehicle, and that's a violation. That's a violation. So I, at least myself, wouldn't to seeing a regulation proposal that fleshes out transportation rules that cover that. We've talked about who is an agent in transportation. If you're hiring a contractor product, but that's a very good point. Is that what jurisdiction does the board have, and by extension through you, over that transportation process?
Thank you,
Mr. Chair. Well, I think that raises another question, because and Ms. Mills can correct me, because I'm oftentimes slightly wrong on some of this. But my understanding is if a licensee in Southeast comes to Anchorage and goes through TSA, declares to TSA, I have marijuana, here's my travel manifest. If they call over the Anchorage Airport Police, they look at that and says, okay, you're abiding by state law, and TSA says fine. But if in fact it's in a duffel bag with a TSA lock, that's maybe not following state law. So I think we need to look at some of those kinds of issues when we're talking about transportation. The clearest record. I don't know if metric says, I'm leaving such and such manufacturer in Anchorage and I'm delivering it to retail store in Juneau via Alaska Airlines. Is that what metric says? I was just curious.
Mr. Jones, if it would help, in the next board meeting I could present a couple of manifests that show an example of how that type of thing is documented, of course redacted, and maybe that would assist. But there are notes. It shows there's a whole note section that says how they will get from point A to point B. And you can put as much description as that, and it's encouraged to do so as much as you want. That explains what flight number, which way you're going to be going, which street you're traveling, and that type of thing, and what vehicle you're in. That way we know if there's a deviation or if something, there's a delay or something that happens, then we know about it.
Last airline order has anyone in
Well, that actually raises an interesting question, is what if Alaska Airlines were flying to a destination southeast, and because of weather, you're going to Seattle, and you're transporting. I don't know if that happened, but I would hate to be the guy with a carry-on full of product who has to land in Seattle. I still got my manifest, but well, if you're smart, you don't leave. If you're smart, you don't leave the terminal. However, that is, and I don't know if it happened, but if it did, holy cow, that makes it an interesting situation.
If you have access to internet, you can change your manifest. You're responsible for it up until the moment the other licensee accepts it. So if you get stuck, the paper manifest is important, it's what you show to law enforcement, but what we're looking at is documented metric, and if you get stuck, if you put in a note and you change your manifest to say, weathered out, had traveled to Seattle, stuck out overnight, taking this flight back to Anchorage or whatever, then you can do that. And if you don't document it on the piece of paper that you got, you document it online with internet access. So I do appreciate you guys' comments on that. There's a lot surrounding transportation because obviously that's how marijuana product get from point A to point B and C, however it may work.
Okay, we've got like 15 minutes for yourself.
Yes. All right, I still got a little more on transportation. So on a manifest, when we've been, enforcement has been very, I guess, consistent with saying that no one under 21 can be in the vehicle while the transport is occurring. We've never said that if you're a licensee and your wife isn't, that they can't go with. As long as they're over 21, they understand what's going on in that vehicle. We haven't made an issue of it. Now, there's been a few questions brought up. Let's say a licensee from Fairbanks is transporting marijuana to Anchorage. And on the license, I don't know if this would be acceptable to the board or not, and I've been looking, and based off of what you guys said in your transport regulation, it seems like it had very conflicting regulations. But I looked into it, and I wasn't able to determine if our interpretation or our thinking would be backed up by the board, and I wanted to ask you guys specifically. But let's say two individuals, two separate licensees are in the same vehicle. I'm sorry, two scenarios. Same licensee, two people in the vehicle, both have handler cards. They're driving from Fairbanks to Anchorage. One wants to get off into an alley and stay there after they switch middle of the road driving. The other one gets off and the other one continues on to Anchorage. Is there an issue with that?
I was actually wanting to pose the board as well. As you know, distances are vast. Some of the businesses that have many customers have multiple stops. Currently, some people felt that would be a violation of the regulations. I myself was not entirely sure whether that would be or not. I think that's something that would be helpful so long as the persons are licensees, they're credentialed in metric, they have marijuana handler cards, and that the chain of custody is maintained. I personally, that would be acceptable. I think that would help facilitate commerce here, so long as there was a mechanism for us to do that.
So another thing that got brought up, scenario 2, and I'm sorry, I do have 3 scenarios. Licensee in Juneau, or let's say Skagway, and then a licensee here in Anchorage. So Anchorage licensee wants to fly and deliver product to Skagway, but they can't make it there without having to overnight one day. So if the Skagway licensee flies to Juneau and meets them in Juneau, they're both listed on the manifest. There might be some reasons why that wouldn't be acceptable, to include that the responsibility is always with the licensee who is doing the transport till it's accepted at the other facility. And we kind of, I don't want to say confuse the issue, but when we allowed who, not what, where, but when we allowed an agent from another licensee to come and pick up from an area, technically the transfer is not completed until it arrives by our regulation, till it arrives at the destination premises. So if somebody signs for the manifest at the originating licensee, that would be a violation. It is technically not delivered until it gets back to the premises where it's being delivered to. Now, if I was a licensee and somebody else came to pick up product from me, that person who came to pick up product from me needs to understand that I'm trusting that person, because even though I'm not physically the one bringing it back, by regulation, I'm responsible for that until it makes it back to point A. So my inclination, I'm neutral on this. I don't have really, as long as it is documented and the board can figure out if there was a violation, who that violation was to go to, it is, enforcement's only concern is to make sure that marijuana gets from point A to point B safely and is documented. That's our only our goal for that. So I wanted to bring that up.
To the chair, Mr. So again, that situation is another that comes up frequently, especially businesses trying to go between Fairbanks and, say, Ketchikan or something like that. That question comes up a lot. Is it going to be okay for the two people to meet in Anchorage or meet in Juneau? And this may be something that the board needs to fix in regulation. But again, my personal feeling is that the chain of custody is what needs to be maintained. Again, done by licensees, their employees are agents, that their credentials in the metric, that the metric manifest is reflected or updated. Everyone has their handler's cards, but we can be reasonably certain that those people have the impetus to maintain that chain of custody. It's not just some random person coming up. I think that would be acceptable. Maybe we have to change that in regulation to make it enforceable, but I think that would be acceptable.
I think the other kind of scenario is, speaking of Southeast, if somebody from Anchorage was bringing product to Juneau, and the person from pick on Skagway came to Juneau to pick up the product but couldn't get back the next day, most likely they wouldn't be in a vehicle. They might walk half a block to extended care, spend the night, walk back to the airport, on Alaska seaplanes or whatever, and which doesn't have to go through TSA to get to Skagway the next day. I've seen some emails and some discussion about, I had to go to a licensed premise so they would have it overnight, so it wasn't in a hotel. I've seen other scenarios, but I think oftentimes they would probably just walk over to extended care, or they would stay with a friend who might have minor children overnight, because that saves a hotel, and then go to Skagway the next day. So the chain of custody is with that individual, but that individual oftentimes is not alone all the time. I mean, it's not like they've isolated themselves in some way. So they're at extended care, they're at a different hotel, they're at a friend's house, and they've got product with them, with the manifest and everything, but the chain of custody would be a little bit harder to understand that kind of scenario.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, even though I said we're neutral on this. My very first thought on this was no, because what's to stop the Anchorage licensee from just bringing it to a Juneau licensee, transferring it from there, and the Juneau licensee transfer it from them to Skagway? It makes more sense. It's more clean that way. I don't know how well the licensees work with each other in that manner. I know it's competition, and I know things all require money, but that is the safest way to do it. It's the most well-documented way to do it. With that being said, when we do have people that have unnecessary stops or stays, we do ask them, if you can bring it, change your manifest and drop it, but bring it to another licensee to hold overnight, that's much more secure than being stuck under your hotel bedroom or in your friend's garage or somewhere else, because it allows for us to have a location where that's present and it's safe. Now, worst case scenario, if that did happen and that bag disappeared overnight from the hotel room for some reason, who do you hold accountable and what happens? Those are a lot of the questions that come up, and I hope the licensees can respect these questions that we're getting constantly, and this is what inundates us a lot of times. It makes you think. It really does, and it makes you question if you could be supported by regulations if you allow it, number one, or if you write a violation for it, number two. Now, the third scenario I was also going to bring up is if you have two vehicles coming on the road system this way and transferring from one vehicle to another, one licensee to another, my instinct on that is no. There is not really, I mean, Fairbanks to Anchorage or Fairbanks to the Peninsula is probably the longest trip you can do in the state on a road system, correct? I think that you just need to plan for that and start early and end late. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's the most clean way to do it if you want to get from point A to point B. And if you talk about driver fatigue, bring two people.
So that's a right question, though. Say you run a fairly large business that has deliveries at multiple retails. You have to go from Fairbanks all the way down to Homer. You've got 27 deliveries or something, basically every retail along the way, and you do have to basically continue through the night or overnight. A lot of the retailers, they're only there certain hours of the day. The transport team, they may be able to drive all night and continue on, but at some point they are going to have to stop and overnight. That's a question that's been raised: is it acceptable to overnight in the vehicle? If there isn't a retail that is comfortable with the other retailers along the way, you could be stuck. Now, some of the retails work pretty well together, but others see their competitors as fierce competition, and they don't want to hold product overnight. And so that's kind of a sticking point. It's like, okay, so the transport team, they are fully capable of starting in Fairbanks, going down to Homer, and coming back with the money. But where do they stop? Is it okay for them to stay overnight? Can they find a licensee to deliver that to? That's where the question of people coming up and meeting in Anchorage comes. It's like, if the transport business might be able to pull it off, but are you going to be able to get enough cooperation from the retailers, and is stopping on the side of the road with the two transport specialists in the vehicle with the marijuana to sleep, or just to basically loiter until the next business in line opens up? Is that going to be acceptable?
Well, I want to come back to what I brought up initially about a locked compartment. Now, if you're sleeping on the side of the road, or you're waiting, or you have some kind of van where you have a cot, or you're in a hotel and you leave your vehicle parked in there, if it's in a locked compartment attached to the vehicle, I'd feel comfortable with it staying in that vehicle. But if it's in a duffel bag with a padlock where it takes nothing but a Leatherman or a knife to get to it, there's a bigger concern there. And I know we're trying to balance the different ways of transport, and I have a feeling that this transport, this is the second time that if a regulation project were to be open on transport, it would happen. I'm afraid that this is going to be the bane of regulations unless we get it squared away, because there's so much to do with transportation in the state of Alaska. And I don't think any scenario we can ever think of would cover everything that can occur and happen. So, with that being said, I think if we are on the road system and the main area of road system is transporting, and they have the, I guess, possibility that they're going to be stuck overnight or somewhere, then maybe we need to have a regulation that they do need a log box secured to the vehicle for that matter. especially if we have vehicle specialists whose all they have is handler cards and not licenses, and that's his specialty. I would hope that a company would secure somebody's marijuana until the transport arrives at the facility.
At least secure as well as it would secure the cash they're bringing across the street.
Exactly. So, with that, I got a short amount of time. I just want to reemphasize the return or backflow of transport and product. It's my opinion that if it's a faulty product that's sold at a retail level, that product should be destroyed at the retail level, and they work with the product manufacturer or whoever it may be to get that resolved. I don't see the benefit or the reason for it to go back to the product manufacturer unless they want to study why it happened. But generally, it's from the something that they didn't manufacture. It's from something that they're adding to the manufacturer. Correct, Mr. Hammond?
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah. Well, a lot of the backflow requests are actually flour, and I think Mr. Miller could speak to this better than I could. Generally, manufactured products like the edibles don't. There's no request to backflow them. I mean, or I shouldn't say no, but there's not as often of a request as there is for the actual marijuana itself.
Gotcha. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I've heard it too, is the backflow is because it's not selling well.
For us, it's been 2 instances. It's not selling well, and we'd like to send it to a manufacturer, or it's not selling well, and we've worked out a deal with a cultivator that they'll take it back and replace it with a different strain, different percent, something like that. But from my perspective as a retailer, you know, you need the flexibility to be able to do something with a product that's not moving. So for retailers, I think it's very important they have some ability to at least move it somewhere instead of just letting it sit there and go deteriorate, really.
And again, in my opinion, before I leave, is backflow from a retail to a product manufacturer is not supported in the statute, so I don't think that can be done unless a statute was changed. Backflow from the retail to the cultivator for that purpose, I don't know if that's clearly defined. I know it would probably create issues with taxes that it's already paid on that because they're seeing product come back and then leave and taxes not paid on that. I don't know how exactly tax monitors that, but I can only imagine that would create a confusing situation unless it was very well documented.
Yeah, to the chair, Chief Ulster. So the tax on the marijuana flower would already have been paid if the transaction was complete from the grower to the retailer. Then by law, that grower is required to have paid that tax. Now, the question would be is if that goes back to the grower, does it have to be taxed again if it's resold? This is the kind of stuff that they need to come up with an opinion about because it has to be changed in statute. So I would think the tax is already paid,
but
so it can just go on.
But I think what Mr. Miller said is they would replace that product with a different strain, which means you would have a wholesale product going back to the retailer in replace of what's already been taxed, but would you tax the new? You know, it's not like you're going to resell what's being returned, but you're giving them a new product which hasn't shown to be taxed, whether that would be taxed. I think that's sort of what
that's a good question. I would think that marijuana would, by law, have to be taxed too. So again, the manufacturer is kind of an integral part of this. There's a, you know, we're the one-stop shop for bugs, mold, shattered dreams, that sort of a thing.
But also, if it goes from the cultivator to the retailer and then it's returned before the end of the tax reporting period, would it have been taxed? Because you don't have to pay your taxes until a month, potentially a full 2 months after you transfer that. I mean, if you transfer it on January 1st, you don't have to pay taxes on that February 28th, correct?
Yeah, and that's a good question because I personally have never explored whether the taxes were paid or not. There's the price. Pay the price. It's on the grower to pay the taxes. They paid it great. Well, that's on them. So, good question.
And I guess my question is, what's the average time we're looking at between when it initially was transferred to where generally that hey, this isn't selling or moving well, how long are we talking?
You would have to actually ask the person who runs the store. I can find out, but I don't know who runs the business.
And my last comment before I leave regarding NOVs, unless we have, some of them may have accusations later. I don't have, I guess my comments will be spoken through an accusation if one's warranted on that. So I don't have anything specific. Correct. It is for FYI, if we ever move forward regarding any NOVs, it would be through accusation. Correct, Director? All right. Thank you, Board.
Right, thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thanks, Chief.
Okay, let's take a break. 3 o'clock's all right. Come back. What time are we going to go to? 4:30?
Mr. Chair.
You get to decide.
Mr. Chair, I have to be back at the hotel set up for a meeting at 5:15, so 4:30 for me is ideal.
Yep. All right, so that's the schedule, folks. Back at 3 and leave at 4:30.
Participants in the conference.
Okay, we are back on the record. Marijuana Control Board. Our next item is tab 5. No, our next item is, right?
4.
Tab 4. The only item under that is an executive session to consider the designation of some proprietary information.
Oh, Mr. Chair, so under this item are provided usually all of the NOVs and any responses received from the licensee. So this is an opportunity for the board to ask any questions you may have about the NOVs. As Mr. Holster stated, there may be forthcoming accusations, but pending that, this is your opportunity to ask questions. The executive session issue, which is a little unusual, is that there was one NOV in response where the licensee did request that it be kept confidential under 306-905, so the board gets to evaluate that in executive session. So I don't know, A, if the board has any questions about the other NOVs and which you would like to do first.
Does anybody have any questions about any NOVs?
I don't have a question. I'm trying to understand the agenda. So the executive session doesn't apply to tab 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Correct.
It applies to one of the NOVs in the 119 pages of NOVs?
Nope, it applies to an NOV that is in your folder under a tab that says executive session items, because if the board determines that it is not appropriate to keep it confidential, then we will later post it, for the public. But we don't, when that's requested, we don't post it for the public until the board has made a determination.
Okay. And I don't have any questions on 18 pages. It was a lot of information, and some of it had responses. And
yep. Anybody else got any questions about the 118 pages of NOVs? Okay, then why don't we entertain, but first let me ask, in this executive session, would we expect counsel for the respondent to be in with us to make the argument?
I would think so.
Okay. And I guess we'll have our counsel, and we'll have the executive director, and any of the officers available.
Yes, we have two officers, Investigator Mankowski and Investigator
this one.
Well, no, I expect they were not, because these were Fairbanks-based investigators.
Okay, yeah, so I don't know if we necessarily need, we'll find out quickly. Okay, so we'll accept we'll entertain a motion in a session to consider designating an NOV confidential with the presence of counsel for the is the respondent here also? Okay, the respondent, the counsel for the respondent, our counsel, our executive director, and we'll see how long we need the investigators for.
So motions.
Okay, there's a second. Okay, discussion. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, so those that are staying, you know who you are.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end. participants in the conference.
Okay, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So motion.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so do we have a motion on NOV AB 17-00000445?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
The notice of violation dated 04/03/2018 for license number 10005 per 3 AAC 306.905. Move that the NOV be redacted because of personal confidentiality issues, and that the response be withheld.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we discussed this in executive session with the respondent, our counsel, and our counsel. The redactions will consist of individual names and personal financial information, bank accounts and interest rates. And so, we had a second to that motion? All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So, Mr. Emmers, you also have a few other NOVs in the stack that you would like to address, and hopefully you'll do them in the same order that they are in our package. I think the first one starts on in the package on page.
Yeah, we've got them printed out in order. Dan Waldine for the record, counsel for Mike Emery.
This is Mike Emerson, RCFC LLC.
Mike wanted a chance to discuss with the board and just go over some of these violations, because these violations date back, a year, in some cases a little over a year, and then he got them served on him all at once the day before the April no meeting. So he wanted to take the time to, he flew down here from Fairbanks. He really wanted to address the board and address any concerns or questions you had about his business and his business practices. Do you want to hit the first one?
Sure. So, I guess you've read all this, or do you have, what's the best way to go through this? Okay. So, other responses there?
Tell us what page number it is on the actual packet. I don't want to scroll through 119 pages.
I think the first one starts on page 7.
Okay. So this one has to do with some untagged plants, and we have nothing to say about this one. They were out of the many plants that we had, there were 10 untagged plants, 9 to 11. It's just all entirely our fault. Should have been tagged.
Yeah, they were in about a batch of about 6 or 80 small plants, and some of them, they're out in the midnight sun and they grow faster than you think, because it's not a light deprivation or an indoor facility. So some of them were 10 of them were 9 to 7 inches. The next.
Well, let me just. Your response is, this is true, entirely our fault. Have the plants since been tagged?
Oh. Yeah, the plants were tagged immediately.
And been destroyed.
The next one dates back to July 13, 2017. The Department of Revenue investigator Imes was at the facility, and enforcement agent Michael Chiesa, I don't know how to say his name wrong, Chiesa, that was a tough one, noticed that there was no video coverage of a large metal container. And the container was not on the approved diagram, and it was unlocked, and his concern was that marijuana was being stored there.
That was intended to be a marijuana storage container, but it was July that year. We hadn't started. Our first harvest, you can check metric, was on July 20th. Even begun to store marijuana in there. as soon as, before we started to have installed the camera.
And so it had to be installed, and so they didn't start storing marijuana in there until August 2017. It was on the premises before it was approved, but it wasn't in use before it was approved by the board.
Okay, so you're contending that the first paragraph where it says a large storage container where the licensee was storing marijuana, the container was not listed in the approved premises diagram, the container was unlocked, there were no cameras covering the interior of the container where the marijuana was being stored. So your contention is that there was no marijuana stored in there.
He hadn't marked it yet.
Investigator Stonecipher is on the phone if you have questions for her.
Okay, did she write this one?
She worked with Investigator Steve on this issue.
Okay, yeah, Investigator Stonecipher, Mark Springer.
The conference is no longer in listen-only mode.
Page 9.
Yes, this is Investigator Stonecipher. I am on the line. I am looking at the notice violation issued by Investigator Chiesa. While we were out there, Investigator Chiesa did take a lot of photographs. Unfortunately, he is not available right now. He is traveling right now. I do believe he does have actual photos of marijuana being stored inside of this specific container that is in question. A lot of photographs were taken. Investigator Chiesa would not put something as far as marijuana being stored inside of a Connex if it was not being in fact stored there.
Can I ask a question? Were those, I mean, there was a bunch of photographs and stuff provided, and documents provided with the NOVs to the licensee, and I didn't see any photos of that. If they exist, can we get them?
I would have to speak with the investigator Chiesa as far as where they're located on his hard drives, and as far as which specific Connex is in question. You know better than I would.
I think you got the triple melt burritos. You get like 3 of those.
Okay, folks, this is Marijuana Control Board. We have one of our investigators on the line. We're going over a violation. Please mute your phones. We're not looking for comments or commentary from anybody else. So please just be respectful and listen in. Thank you.
No, I was going to say, Investigator Chiesa came out onto our farm on several occasions in August and September. Could have taken pictures then, but there was a camera and comment on them as well.
The next, unless you have any more questions.
So yeah, the chair. So do you have photographic evidence?
Investigator Chiesa, I believe, does. He took various, multiple photos of every notice violation he wrote, documented it, as to where specifically, I may be able to pull it up on our shared drive, but as far as specific Connex, I know there were several in question that were located out there. As far as which specific one this one was, I could not testify to.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would also assert that neither of our investigators, Fairbanks none of our investigators would state something in an interview that they did not feel would be useful, track down those photographs and get them to you.
Okay, and I'm not insinuating that Investigator Chiesa is telling the truth, but if you're gonna notice someone of a violation, first you need the evidence to support that, you know.
The next NOV is dated April 3rd, 2018, but they noticed this issue, I guess, on July 13, 2017, and it was that there wasn't adequate cameras pointing outside the 2 of the 3 gates facing outward. It had been that way since 2016 when we had that initial inspection, but that was 2016 and Mike was one of the first cultivations open, so maybe they didn't notice it. I don't know why we didn't get notice of this until April, but they noticed it July 13, 2017. It's been fixed since then, and the cameras have been placed, and one of the entries has been fully sealed off with the gate, with the chain.
No, that's accurate.
The next NOV has to do with where Mike was keeping his keys for the door that locked the recording device footage and storage. And I'll let Mike talk about that.
So in our farm office, we have a video control case with it's a lockbox. The key was in the lockbox, but the office is a locked office, and I'm in there all the time. So, yes, it's true. I kept the key in there. I didn't want to lose the key because it was a cumulative thing. And I had trouble copying it before. We sent the pound company to make a copy. But yes, I kept the key in there. I didn't want to lose it. But the office was locked, and we were in there all the time.
And I would just note that the entire fenced-in locked area is all secured, restricted access area, and then within that restricted access area is this little shack house kind of thing that's totally the office, which is locked, and that's where the licensees and the managers operate from. Any questions on that one? This NOV was served on April 3rd, but noticed by enforcement, I guess, on July 13, 2017. And this had to do with a high tunnel that, I want to say this one collapsed, right, in the snow?
Collapsed in December 2016.
Right, yeah, December 2016, this is an outdoor farm, so it doesn't operate during the winter. So in December 2016, too much snow on the high tunnel collapsed it, which, crushed the camera that was in there. And enforcement noticed it on the 13th of July, and we didn't hear any concerns about it until the April NOV. And during the summer of 2017, probably a little bit after July, I would guess, Mike and his team rebuilt the structure, rebuilt the high tunnel, and reinstalled the camera. That was back in 2017. So the camera's been in there since the middle of the summer in 2017.
As soon as we rebuilt the structure, the camera went back in.
So for clarification, so what's the NOV actually for not reporting that a structure was damaged, or for the camera going offline and not reporting it soon enough? Or? I guess that's a question for enforcement. Can
I'll start. Sorry, investigator Stonehaver, let me just start and then you can continue. So the holder of a license cannot alter the functional floor plan without approval, and clearly, they're not going to get an approval for something to collapse, but once it's collapsed, that is an alteration. With the removal of a camera, that's an alteration of their functional floor plan. So that isn't actually specifically stated here, but to me that would be one issue, and then I'll let investigator Stonehaver continue.
I concur with what Director McConnell said. That's where I was going to go with that. That was Investigator Gibbs' intent, was the fact that there had been an alteration to the license premises. We had not had any notification of that change to the license premises. There is a delay in some of this for other reasons related to the case, which I will go into at the time.
So it's written, though, so they would have to get approval for the snow to have collapse, or the issue is just that they didn't report this had happened, because then they would have had to file a change of premises diagram, because technically it's a violation for the snow to smash it, even though they...
We can't expect them to file for the snow collapsing the building. But this building that was on their diagram with camera coverage appears to have been collapsed for 7 months. And we weren't notified. There was no indication that their functional floor plan had changed. I don't know enough about the situation, but it's possible that the camera maybe covered other things that were part of the premise. These are the kind of things that we need to know about, and there should have been an MJ-14.
Just as a little side note, I think a lot of it stems from the fact that the regulations don't really address outdoor farms because, the farm wasn't really functioning in December because it's, 100 miles in the Arctic Circle, so it's cold. I definitely understand it now. So I think that, if there's an issue that comes up again, this is definitely a lesson learned. And we'll look for any snow class stations.
Yeah, in fact, we had another high tunnel collapse. As soon as I received this NOV, I informed enforcement about the other one collapsing and cameras going offline. That was during this project.
Yeah, the way I would look at it is that the footprint of the floor plan outside was altered because the high tunnel was still there. Basically took the same high tunnel and rebuilt it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it was still there. The camera was inside the high tunnel. Right?
It was in there, but it was buried by snow.
Well, right. I mean, when before it collapsed, the camera was inside the high tunnel. Like in the rest of the video. So,
you don't have a door.
Mr. Chair, we've had a lot of discussion about this particular vendor and contiguous sites. And so a lot of the high tunnels also had cameras outside because they were moving product around. So if the high tunnel collapsed and the cameras that were focusing outside were no longer operational, then they were part of the licensed premise that were no longer under continual camera surveillance and being recorded. And that's an issue because that's how the diagram is and that's the way the regulations state. The fact that it collapsed, I understand. You just need to notify somebody the camera inside is not recording. The idea that there were holes in the outside coverage, because we at one point basically said you have to, your entire farm, the licensed premise. We went through that discussion. We went through the discussion whether you could have licensed premise over here and over here, not in between, and we said no. So the coverage has to cover the entire farm. We've had lots of discussions about this particular farm and the way it's operated, but if there were holes in the camera coverage, then that's a violation.
And I would add to that the high tunnel collapsed in December, not growing in December. If he had communicated with us at the time when the season started in the spring or early summer, okay, but here we are July, so, I'm not sure that we needed something within a week or within a month, considering it was winter, but the fact that the season started with no indication of the things that Mr. Jones was talking about is a concern.
So, just add that Mike doesn't recall. I think that Mike is calling that there was no exterior cameras on that one. There's exterior cameras all around the farm and other structures. I think this particular one, he says there's 3 indoor inside cameras inside the house. Which is significant, and I think that's probably where enforcement head was at, where Mr. Jones' head is at. The next request on the business record request, and on the 13th of July 2017, Mr. Emery was requested to provide business records, and were you at the facility when you requested this, or where were you?
Our annual inspection.
Oh, so you were at the facility. So then you gave her what you had available.
Well, correct. She asked me. I didn't have the records in the manner that I think she was expecting. So I offered to give her what records I had. And Investigator Stone Cipher said, no, why don't you just give me the latest date? So, which I did. I don't think that they were in the manner that she was expecting or that other licensees had, but they were the manner that I kept my business records, and that's how I did my business. We've changed a bunch of things since then to be more streamlined, but that's what I had at the time.
And I think Investigator Stone Cipher is really helpful in, guiding Mike into, hey, why don't you use something that's a little, more streamlined of a system, not these cumbersome Excels. And since then, he's taken on QuickBooks and has been using that to enter all his data. And I think it's gotten to a lot more organized fashion, per Mrs. or Investigator Stone Cipher's guidance.
I just have a question about this. This is a violation of 3 AC 306 755, which is 755 is business records. Marijuana establishment shall maintain a format as early as so there is a business person. Then 1, all books and transactions. And 7 is all records. Okay, all right, okay, I asked again. The way the citation is written, it just maybe has some punctuation in there. It looks like it's one contiguous citation, but it's really citing a couple of different parts there. So, okay, all right, that's fine.
Okay. Any questions about that?
I guess I'll ask counsel, what does upon request mean? So shall be provided upon request. Is there a generally accepted, is that a term of art or is that a legal term upon request?
Not particularly, and it generally applies within a reasonable period of time.
Thank you.
Which Mike really appreciated, Investigator Stonecipher sitting down with him and I mean, he spent a lot of time with him and helped him really improve his business record keeping, which I thought was a, really, really good thing. Any more questions on that? Okay. This NOV was served on April 3rd, 2018, and it was noticed on August 2017 by Investigator Stonecipher, where she went to inspect a large amount of waste that licensee reported he was going to intend to destroy, and she said, "Wait, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to check it out." And he was like, "Okay." And there was large moldy amount of marijuana that he was storing in a refrigerated cold unit. And the cold storage unit was not indicated as a location to store marijuana or marijuana waste on his license diagram. And then additionally, she found 2 new structures that were there, but that were not there when she was there on 7/13. And this is kind of confusing to me because her report here says 7/13 there was not the cold. That 7/13 there was not a climate. I guess I'm a little confused on that, so maybe she can help us out. You can help us out, then yeah.
I think we had those in anticipation for our application for the product manufacturing permit. We had those delivered between our annual inspection and when she came out to investigate the waste.
Right, and we kind of outlined this all in our April 2018 request for a MJ14, and you have that relevant part in front of you where we explained, okay, this one should have been there, but we didn't use it yet, right? So there's a difference between can you put something on your facility that you're not using yet and then apply for it to get approved, or do you apply for it to get approved and then put it on your facility? Which I think was a lot of our discussion in April. Do you guys have any questions about that NOV? This one was about the propagation greenhouse, and if you look on the response, which is the next pages, this was disclosed and requested to be approved on the MJ14 in 2017, July 2017. It's similar to the trimming shed. Amanda and Investigator Stonecipher and Investigator Chiesa helped Mike with the camera placement in those units. So that was July 2017. Any questions about that? Okay. Oh, this is a different one. Go on.
No, this this has to do with, they noticed that there was, we had a trim crew on site. They were working in one of the high tunnels. There was a camera on them, but there wasn't a camera walkway that they would walk from trimming to the storage facility. And so they pointed that out. Listen, there's a camera in this walkway. Here's where to put it. We put it up immediately.
And by day, Michael and Amanda came. My gas member, he talked to them a lot, asked them for help. They came and they identified where the camera should go. So then, that was August 22nd, 2017. Oh, this is the metric issue, the next one. Served again on April 3rd, 2018. On August 22nd, 2017, Mike was asked to produce copies of all manifests from that date up until December 6, 2017. And they noted that they thought that there were some discrepancies. And, we went through these and through the metric ticket issues. And we have a very detailed explanation for you about conflicting and ranking it for metric, where at some point they said, hey, it was that early development stage problem where if you hit the return button, or if you hit the return button, it could truncate. Yeah.
Yeah, let me explain what happened here. So, investigator Stone Cipher, when she was looking over my business records and looking over transfer manifests, you can look at a bunch of them, and they had only 4 lines in them. And so she said, you're not completing the manifest. You just wrote 4 lines because for whatever reason I was being lazy or wasn't paying attention. And I was flabbergasted because I know I typed those in. Went back through my records, and in fact, when I first noticed that was in January of 2017, I noticed that what I had typed in, a long route description, was truncated at 4 lines. I called up Metric, asked about it, but what I figured is, okay, it's not on the printed manifest, but I know I typed it in. I could go back in, if I looked at the manifest online, I could see everything there. I figured enforcement could see it there as well, and I figured that the paper manifest was a formality to be signed. That happened on several occasions. When investigator Stone Cipher pointed out to me that no, that it's not just a formality. If I was stopped en route, got a flat tire, crashed into whatever, and another enforcement agency stopped me, looked at the manifest, it wouldn't be complete. So that was really important. I called Metric about this several times. I've gotten several different answers. When Kelly Jenkins came to our farm for a site visit, he said, yes, that was an early problem with transfer manifests in Alaska, that they were truncating things. They stopped things at 4 lines. They couldn't figure out what was going on. If Kelly's still here, maybe he can help with this. So they suggested things. Maybe I was putting returns. Maybe I shouldn't have put commas in. Maybe I should have just run on. Nothing fixed it. It fixed itself after a while. But you can go in today, look at all the manifests in question, and you'll see the route description that I originally typed it in. You can't go back and change things in Metric. So it was a printout problem. I appreciate what Amanda pointed out to me, but
was your original long manifest detail in Metric's cloud?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it's printerish. All right.
I think we provided you a couple of examples. I think we did. Oh, we did provide you the note from Metric that says, we will ask development about it, however they need to stop hitting the return after each direction and put a comma instead.
I think,
yeah.
And I believe we heard earlier from Chief Holter that it's the metric original counts, not printed.
Yeah, and Mike was one of the first ones, and so I think development had a little issue. But we did, so I did print out, you know, if you go to your exhibit 1F, and you look at the form, the first form, it's printed at the very bottom. You'll see we printed it off of Mike's metric account on April 30th, 2018. It's the same metric transfer as the immediate next one, and you see how it's cut off? You see how only 4 lines show on the one that was the physical one that got signed versus the one that was actually on the cloud system. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines, directions on the original one that was in the database, in the metric system, but the one that actually got signed for transport is only 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So that's, I try to give you an example of like, that's kind of what was happening when we printed it out, it short formed it. So we're happy to answer more questions on that, NOV.
What number is that again? Which NOV number is that?
Unfortunately, the NOV numbers are all the same number. But
make a note of that.
Yeah, page 45.
Okay.
So yeah, all 14, I think all 14 or 15, maybe not though, but almost all of them have the same NOV number.
Okay, so, Investigator Sonsheimer, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've got a couple of emails in here that you sent to Kelly Jenkins regarding this. You said, just confirming, as I understand this on page 56, just confirming, I understand correctly, Mr. Ermers did not put the complete route in, and the system did not truncate the route as he is claiming correct. And I don't see an answer from him there. Weren't you able to pull down the original, the metric original of the transport manifest that he prepared?
No, on our end, no, it does not show anything more than what Mr. Emmer would have been able to be printed out. I did speak with Metric in great length and great detail in reference to this. I actually had all of the Metric trouble tickets pulled as well for it. If you give me a moment, I can actually tell you what date, based on those Metric tickets, that Mr. Amherst called and talked to Metric regarding this matter on, which I believe was after the fact this was brought to his attention. Again, I apologize, I have a ton of case files sitting right in front of me with the Metric tickets. So if you bear with me, I can just probably figure out which one it is. As far as what Metric had told me, was there was some that did in fact potentially get cut off, but they believe that it might have been on Mr. Emmer's end as far as the way that he was printing, possibly scaling to size with his printer when printing, instead of allowing it to go on to 2 pages. Not that the system itself was actually cutting it off. The other cases was the information was just not complete. It just was not there. I'm trying to find a specific ticket number for Metric. On Monday, January 30th of, let's see, it was trouble ticket number 18287. It's going to be January 30th. He spoke with Todd Golden, which should have been 2017. They spoke with Mr. Emerson regarding to I'm sorry, Tina Pinkerton, not Mr. Golden, as far as if he needs more room to document his planned route, then he will need to print a blank manifest and write the rest of the directions on the second manifest was given as his instructions. That did not happen. There were several manifests after the fact that did not occur on. So he was given direction by Metric and how to rectify the situation, and it just did not happen for whatever reason on Mr. Emmer's part.
investigators on there. So they more questions on this, and we move right along.
There's a lot of conflicting correspondence. All right. Move on to the next one was served on April 2018 and noted by enforcement on August 22nd, 2017, September 8th, 2017. I think it was Officer Kaiza went to the farm and to inspect a large amount of waste that Mike reported. On the visits, he saw team contractors that didn't have visitor badges displayed. And that, that was, I think, Mike's fault because he didn't, he took their marijuana handler cards, he put them in the file, had them sign in, all that stuff, but he didn't have them wear visitor badges. So that I think is very accurate. Is that a good summation? Yeah, that was on Mike. Okay, so now let's go through here. Okay. Do you have any questions on that one? Okay. Sorry about NOV numbers, it's kind of hard. The next one has to do with a scale issue. I'll let Mike take this one because I think you have the correspondence.
Right. So we had, I think Amanda had issue with the scales we were using for our field harvest blades. And so we talked at length with this before we even started our first harvest in 2016. We had a memo from AMCO enforcement that we needed to address all scale issues to DOT, Donald Brewer. And he pointed out that what he was concerned about was the scale being used for sale, and anything that was going out of our facility for sale needed to be an approved scale by the state at the specifications that AMCO provided. And as far as field weights, he said the fluctuation between what we harvested in the field would go up and down depending on humidity and drying, to such that didn't matter to him anyway. And so we, based on that, we purchased. I used to be a botanist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife in the North Slope. We used scientific scales. I purchased the same ones that we used them to record weights of plants that were accurate to the gram.
Like a hanging scale.
Hanging scales. And we use those to record field weights. So
I think that's the gist of what the investigator had an issue with, that it didn't have decimal points for the field harvest, but anything that was made in a package and made for sale was certified scale, and did have that to the 10th of a gram decimal points. So I guess I'm a little confused in regulations. I don't see anywhere where it requires a certified scale for weighing the field harvest bringing in, only the
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
6445.
I was actually the director. So, how specific is it in regulation? Because I will attest to if you ask DOT about scale certification and how they interpret our regs to be that the scale that is used to go direct to consumer has to be certified and has to go down to a certain decimal place. I don't remember that exact decimal place right now. But the scales that are used in the process before that have to be to a certain standard, have to be reasonably accurate, but they don't have to be a certified scale.
So 306.445 says a marijuana cultivation facility shall use registered scales in compliance with AS 4575-080 and 3 AAC 306.745. 306.745 says marijuana establishment shall use registered scales in compliance with the Weights and Measures Act. Marijuana establishment shall maintain registration and inspection reports of scales registered, blah, 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 and upon request of the board of directors. I don't know about decimal places and stuff like that, but there isn't anything in our regulations that say scales used for X purpose don't have to meet the same standard as scales used for Y purpose. The response to this NOV states that there was a memo forwarded to me by Investigator Bankowski addressed to enforcement by Donald Brewer from DOT, states that questions regarding weights and measures in the industry should be directed to his office. So it wasn't a memo from enforcement to the licensees. I haven't seen this memo, so I don't know what it says. I don't know whether it says, hey, if people have questions about scales and enforcement can't answer, on the guy at DOT. I don't know. But the board's regulations require certified scales according to the Weights and Measures Act for whatever activity, all activities that involve weighing marijuana.
Well, it says registered.
So
the registered, and that's the issue. So because this is a conversation I've had with DOT, the registered scale and certified scale is different. You know, and so when you call them and you talk to them, they say that there's a specific standard for marijuana or any produce product that is going direct to consumer. But like Mr. Emmers stated, that because there's quite a bit of variation during production, harvest, that sort of stuff, that as long as it's an acceptable scale for general commerce, that will fly. And so I think this brings up an issue that we need to be specific as to what we're requiring, and if we are referencing the DOT their requirements, then we need to have on record exactly what that is, because there could be multiple licensees that could get this same NOV when, after they've had their discussion with the DOT and they had the scales that they needed certified, and the ones that they were told they didn't need to certify, not, they're in compliance by the DOT, but our investigators may think that they're out of compliance because of the registered/certified clarification.
I would really like to see kind of, I don't know, right off the top of my head, how many other references to other agency regulations or statutes contain our regulations, but I'd certainly like to see, a copy of 4575-080. Now, we're talking about two different scales, right?
Correct.
And how many of them have got the seal on them from the Division of Weights and Measures?
The one that's used to package the product for sale.
Okay, and it says this scale has been tested.
Correct.
It's got the guy's signature on it.
And also the one that we use for
that's your legal scale. The other scale is the one that you've just been using for your own internal measurement for your metric reporting, right? So, I guess really you should. Is the other one testable?
Well, we since we got this NOA, we've had further conversations with Mr. Brewer. He told us that he wanted an NTEP scale. I said if we wanted to cover all our bases, get all NTEP scales, which is a national certified agency, and for our field scales. Now, we purchased those. We're getting them certified. We haven't started harvesting yet this year. Those scales aren't as accurate as the scales we have been using. They're accurate to 2 grams. The scales we have been using were accurate to 2 grams, but they can't be certified by him. So
they cannot be.
They cannot be.
The field ones.
Right, yeah. Right. That was one of the scientific scales when
yeah.
they were weighing birds on the North Slope and stuff.
Correct.
Yeah. Sure. So it's like a produce scale in the grocery store that says on it 90 pounds.
Well, except they cost about $150, $200 each.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that. Okay, so it seems like we might be in search of a circular letter from the Division of Waste Measures, you know, for cultivators at least, as to what sort of scales they will come out and inspect and, you know, make sure that they're accurate, check their accuracy. That's all that is, check their accuracy. But I think some communication from the Bureau of Waste and Measures would be helpful for everybody.
Every time the word scale is used in our regulation, it talks about registered. So the regulation doesn't make a difference between registered and certified. So I think you're right looking at those. But I think our assumption was that the board is requesting the same thing every time a scale is used. So if that's not
that may be the wrong word. Registered may be the wrong word.
Yeah,
I think that we should be using the word that exists in 45, 75, all the way on.
And that's where my point comes from, is that when you talk to those guys down at the DOT, they will give you advice that can result in an NOV, because they'll come to your facility and they'll say, okay, you got 10 scales. This one, this one, and this one, those have to be certified. Those have to get the stamp because those are your own consumer. These other ones, we don't really care about those other ones. You know, does it look like it is a functioning scale? It is. Is it a scientific scale? Is it a produce scale? Whatever it is. Okay, cool. But we're just going to certify these ones, and then the rest are fine. And so I think we've got a conflict here where we're creating NOVs unintentionally so.
This is an NOV that we received. So when CanTest comes up and collects samples from many facilities, we are given a route description that we are to type into metric. Okay. So when I got this route description, it said at the very end that Ms. Hellings was going to stop at Fred Meyer Gas. Well, I looked in regs and it said no stops other than at other facilities. So I thought that wasn't okay, so I omitted that.
Well, you thought it said other than necessary.
Yeah, right. So that's my bad. I should have kept it in there because it was I realized now, and I've been told since, that gas stops are legitimate. And so she was stopping there. I should have kept it in. And so I understand that.
Yeah, that was August 21st, 2017. And since then, I think pretty quickly, Amanda, you talked about, I don't know if you talked about this one.
Yeah. We talked about this one. Yeah. She presented me two manifests. One was mine, one was from another facility. One had the gas stop in, mine didn't. You should have put it in.
Yeah. The other issue in this NOV was that the person who was delivering the product to CanTest was supposed to arrive at 3 p.m., but CanTest didn't report or accept the product into the system until 5:03 p.m. So I'm assuming when a person from CanTest goes around and picks up a bunch of samples, it probably takes, I don't know really anything about the acceptance process for testing that, but I'm assuming they have to put it in their system, weigh it, do a bunch of things. So I could see why that would take, an hour or so to insert the sample into the system. So happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, let me jump back to the previous one scales. I just noticed there's the receipt, there's the scale report from the state. So it says, what's that, Tory and CCS scales. And those are the two scales we're talking about, right? The hang scale is one of them? Oh, no. Okay.
I have two certified scales.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Okay.
One for waste measurement, like waste weighing, and one for packaging.
Okay. So this should be all we're looking for is a letter A, approved for use on a state elastic scale report. That means that the inspector has been there and scale is approved for, I would presume, commercial use. Okay, great. He's got, okay, another one there. Okay, so so now we're on the route,
Okay. Chair. So, I think Mr. Jones said he had a hard stop at 4:30. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all the rest of these. I suggest there's ones that we have questions about that we bring those up, or if there's ones that really wants to contest, that we hear those, but it might be tough to get through all of these before Mr. Jones has to go. And I've been comfortable with 4 board members, but I'd really like to not operate with only 3.
I think the one that we really wanted to also talk about is the next one that it talks about Mike, skipping a vegetative phase entirely and then putting the plants into flower. The thing about these plants is that they're autoflowers, so they don't have a light cycle. And so sometimes as soon as, I've sent pictures showing little flowers budding, even when they're not even an inch tall, they're showing signs of budding because they're autoflowers and they don't have a veg cycle. So we're happy to make up a cycle, but...
Well, no, I think the language used is that I was skipping a growth phase, and that wasn't language that I used. I think that was language that Amanda Stonecipher used that has stock and that has persisted through this conversation. In fact, when you, I did a screenshot because I was curious about this last night. In metric, when you take a plant out of an immature phase, it doesn't tell you must enter into vegetative first. I know that's what all my colleagues do who grow indoors, but that's not what we do with autoflowering plants because they hit the ground running, they flower immediately almost upon germination. So given the option, because metric does give you the option of selecting either flowering or vegetative, we consulted with metric before we started, when in 2016, they said, sure, go right to flowering, because that's what the plants are doing. So we just wanted to record what is accurately happening there. I think at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if we put it into vegetative for a week or two, we can put it into flowering a week later. We're just saving a big step with the thousands of plants that we're growing. So to just do that once, put it into flowering, because they are flowering, that's what we're doing.
If the board would like us to change how he's reporting it, we'd like to know. Because, he doesn't want to lie, and these things are showing signs of buddings before they hit 8 inches. So, what would you like us to do?
You can select the plant flowering according to this, which I'm not familiar with the cultivation side of metric, so excuse me, but metric will allow you to do it.
Correct, but that's what we got to know. That's what you got to know.
Yeah, okay, so metric will allow you to do it. And for the board's clarification, so auto-flowering plants, they start flowering as soon as they either reach a certain size or they get an environmental trigger, like cold weather, because they don't flower on a light cycle. And so I've grown autoflowers in my personal grow after marijuana was legalized, and it's true, you put an autoflower seed in the ground, and if it's sitting outside, yeah, you can come and be this tall, and it's got little pre-flowers on them, and sometimes they only end up being that tall when they finish. So this is something that jumps out to me should definitely not be an NOV. It sounds like they would have to add an extra step and say they're in vegetative stage when they're technically not. So I think this is just a misunderstanding of how the autoflowers actually work.
That's also in this NOV is plants remaining in flowering status for an extended period of time, up to 5 months. So we're dealing with plants here that the genetics aren't dialed in for autoflowers. You'll get some autoflowers that will produce when they should in 2 to 3 months, and others that still have that photoperiod gene that prevents them from flowering under a long daylight. So sometimes we're waiting for them to flower and they never do. That's why. Other reasons is because we're breeding to them. We actually save the males, we keep them in a separate greenhouse, we collect the pollen, and we breed to them. So we have to keep them in flowering stage for a longer period of time so that these mature. So because we have to start from seed, we do not do any clones, and we need to. If we plant 1,000 seeds, we need 1,000 plants, and we need to plant 2,000 because half of them will be male. So we have to produce an incredible amount of seed for our own longevity of the pollen.
Because Mike doesn't buy any seeds or anything like that. He creates them from his existing plants, and then the seeds are used for the next season.